Now, today I want to concentrate on a famous, let's just say, Italian rabbi, Rabbi Moshe David Cassuto. Happened to be a very famous rabbi of his time. I believe he was born back in English year 1883, and he passed away in English year 1951, to be precise. I believe he passed away on the 19th of December in 1951. He was a famous rabbi of his time. He was a historian. He was a scholar, let's just say, of Hebrew. He was of Torah, Ugaritic literature. And he would actually spend time in the University of Florence and University of Rome, La Sponza, various other places. He was an academic also, like many of the Italian rabbis were in that age. Also, we're going to speak over with regards to 1938. He suffered anti-Semitism with regards to Italian racial laws, which was not, it would force him to leave his position, and he would eventually move to Hebrew University of Jerusalem at one stage in time. So he was born in an area called Friends in Italy on the 16th of September in the 1883. He was born over there at that point in time. So he was, or another opinion says he was born in Florence. He was the son of Gustava and Ernesta Galetti. I think it was a traditional Jewish family, let's just say. He would go on to study in Italy in the University of Florence. I think he would graduate in the year 1906 over there, and then he would go to, I think he would receive rabbinic ordination, come at the year 1908. I think it's actually called the Collegio Rabbinico. It is actually named over there. I think the principal at the time was someone named, I think, Rabbi Shmuel Hirsch Margulis. And he would actually really strongly influence him dramatically at that stage in time. He would get a degree, and he would also receive rabbinic ordination, a smicha, as they say in Hebrew. He would teach at institutions, I think in both the universities respectively, I think from 1922 to 1925. And I think during those years he was a chief rabbi of Florence. In 1925 he became a professor of Hebrew and literature at the University of Florence, and then took the chair of Hebrew language at the University of Rome, I think Rome La Sapienza. And now come on 1938, there was anti-Semitism, and different laws, anti-Semitic laws, would force him from his position, and eventually he would fill the chair, let's just say, of biblical studies at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Bandary, Palestine. That would be the next position he'll take, I think, in 1939, and he would teach there until he passed away in 1951. Now he looked into archaeology. That was one of the specialities he would really concentrate on, archaeological works and the texts with regards to the Hebrew Bible he would speak about. He would investigate with regards to origins of the Torah. He was very critical that, people were translating, especially people from other languages and other religions, the Torah in of itself. And so, not just that, especially, it should be someone Jewish and someone, Yirat Shamayim should be doing the translating. He liked to compare how, maybe mistakes might have been made in other translations at that stage in time. And he would really speak within regards to that and do a little writings within regards to that. I think he would write commentaries on various different books, especially in Bereshit, especially from the time period of Adam to Noach to Avraham Avinu, and he would write commentary in 1961 on that, and do a commentary on the book of Shemot, I believe. I think that would eventually be published in 1967, possibly after he passed away. And he was a critic, of many other people. Remember, at that stage in time, he was in contact with many people of interfaith religion. So he was also non-Jewish people he was speaking to, and he would actually really, I think, comment, on this. He wanted, he felt the need of producing a Tanakh, like a textual information for the Hebrew, like Torah, the Torah Nevi'im and Ketuvim. So he realized at that point in time that, unfortunately, it was mostly non-Jews or Jewish people that weren't religious that were writing these. So he thought that he would like to investigate on these manuscripts, let's just say, in of itself. So he would look at oldest manuscripts of the Torah Nevi'im Ketuvim and try and find that out. I think he would visit the great synagogue of Aleppo at one stage in time in Syria and study the Aleppo Index. He was one of the very few scholars to study, let's say, this key manuscript before most of the Torah section and some of the prophets and writing sections disappeared, I think, in 1947 anti-Jewish riots in Aleppo. I think from his research, he himself concluded that the printed, let's say, Bible things over there, text, generally had an accurate text. However, I believe he would actually go on to correct spelling of many of the words and made corrections, let's say, of vowel points and musical notes. He would revise the layout of the text. and the poetical lines where he deemed appropriate. I think possibly in the book of Tehillim, Mishlei, and in Iyov. I think he would publish something in the year 1959 connected to this, but I'm not too sure. It doesn't really bring down here on the Wikipedia article that I'm reading from how accurate the people would say or how reliable it was in of itself. He writes various commentaries on the Hebrew Bible. I think the Jewish Virtual Library says in 1944 the Shirat Aliyah B'Yisrael, it was Song of the Plot in Israel. It was published in England, and Oriental Studies. I think he was made a primary contribution to that. He wrote other works. I think many of his works were available in Italian and in English, which we also have to point out, which is also very, very interesting. So he was a famous rabbi at that point in time. So let's explore a bit with regards to his family life. Also, I believe he would, as I said before, I think he had 5 children, if I'm not mistaken. He would. I'll just explore his family life just in 1 second. Okay. So it's actually interesting. So we talked about how he was influenced by Rabbi Shmuel Margulius inside the university, how he was his rabbi and how he would become a chief rabbi in Florence, and the racial laws, let's just say anti-Semitism he suffered over there really, really hurt him, and how he would, I think, contribute to Hebrew encyclopedias. He passed away, I think, in 1951. He was about 68 years of age. He was buried in the Sanhedria cemetery. Remember, we talked about how he would end up in Israel working over there. I think many of his archives are in the Department of the National Library in Jerusalem, which I recommend everyone to look at. Now, him and his wife, Rabbanit Simcha, I think they had, their oldest daughter was Milka Cassuto Saltzman. She was married to Mordechai Saltzman, I think a Jerusalem educator, and he was a chief librarian in the Department of Antiques of the British Mandate, I believe. Their second son, Nathan Cassuto, was a rabbi also in Florence, and I think during World War II, he went from house to house to try and convince his congregation to hide out of fear against the Nazis, we actually recorded a video with regards to him. I think at some stage in time he passed away. I think he lost his life at the time period of the war, if I'm not mistaken. But I would recommend everyone to look into that. I think Rob Nathan, his son, 3 of his children were saved by their aunt Hulda during that time period of the war, and would make Aliyah to the land of Israel. And I think Nathan's wife, Rabbi Nathan's wife, this daughter-in-law, returned from the extermination camps, but I think lost her life, perished in the Hadassah convoy massacre. One of his sons, I think, is an architect, someone named David Cassuto. He was born in 1937. He became a professor in Ariel University and was one of the residents of the Old Jewish Quarter of Jerusalem in the 1990s, and would serve as deputy mayor, apparently, under Ehud Olmert, who was a mayor of Jerusalem at one point in time. So that was one of his descendants. Their third daughter, Leah Roca, married Elchanan Enzo Roca. They lived most of their years in Jerusalem. Their youngest daughter, Hulda Campanino, married Saul, who was a doctor, also I think of mathematics, a teacher of mathematics, physics. I think he taught in a high school kibbutz, and lived in, I think, Kvutzat Yavne until the last day. Now, what's actually interesting, we actually visited this area of Kvutzat Yavne on this channel not so long ago, I think. Now, commemorations were put in place for him. I believe there's a street in the Bayitz Vagan neighborhood in Jerusalem that is named after him. He writes various different writings, especially in Italian. One of them was the Jews of Florence during the Renaissance. I think that was printed in 1918. There was a Doctrine of Faith, a commentary on the book of Exodus, which we spoke about before. There was obviously on Genesis, on the Bereshit, the various different parts with regards to the stories of the different parts of biblical, and the Jews of Florence during the Renaissance I spoke about. I think maybe that was printed through the Ben Tzvi Institute and Hebrew University. And I think it was published in Kiryat Sefer, if I'm not mistaken. The Dante and Emmanuel the Roman. It was printed by the Bialik Institute, publishing in 1965. And there was other books also printed by the Bialik, let's just say, printing house itself, respectively. So he was a famous rabbi of his time. He had descendants, especially most notably his son Nathan Cassuto. And he was a professor also. You could say Rabbi Moshe David Cassuto. He actually was also known as Umberto Cassuto. That was maybe his Italian name. I'm just reading this from Wikipedia at the moment. So very, very interesting. So please, everyone, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. We're a community here. We're learning about great rabbis of yesteryear. Friends, we've already covered on this series about 1,100 rabbis of yesteryear. We're an online encyclopedia trying to learn about the different great Oriental rabbis. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please subscribe now. We're nearing 7,000 subscribers, which is a phenomenal achievement. If anyone's interested in watching these videos, please share these videos to other people also. And wishing you blessings from Israel. Take care, and thank you for watching.